Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Mama Bear Podcast. I'm Brie.
And I'm Erryn.
And today we're going to be talking to you about co-sleeping. We're going to break down what co-sleeping is, some of the pros and cons, and then we'll get more specifically into what we do with our children at night.
Mama Bear, I'm here to stay. With wisdom and warmth, let's light the way. Together we'll laugh, together we'll share. In this cozy space, it's love and care.
Again, just prefacing this with, this is just our experiences. We are not professionals in any way. We just want to chat about what we did and what works for us.
Yeah. So to hit the ground running, what is co-sleeping? I Googled it earlier, just before you got here.
The Webster's definition.
Yeah, the Webster's definition, as reiterated by Brie, is co-sleeping can be an assortment of variations from bed sharing to room sharing. Essentially, you're sharing space with your baby, and that looks a lot of different ways. And everyone has their own situation, different homes, different, partner. Some people have a husband, some people have a partner, some people don't share a room with their partners. Anyways, it always looks different. So that can look different from house to house or couple to couple. Specifically, when we talk about it today, it will be considered bed sharing.
Yes.
Rather than room sharing. We also wanted to quickly touch base on some of the disadvantages, just before we jump into all the advantages and reasons why we have bed shared or co-slept. Again, Google tells us there's three glaring issues. So one, SIDS, right? Very sad, very unfortunate if not done or taken the right precautions. SIDS is sudden infant death syndrome. Obviously, we've all heard of that. Very sad, and you want to do everything you can to avoid that situation. And we can talk a little bit about that. Again, not medical advice, but just our experiences. The second is suffocation. So anything soft in the bed, pillows, blankets, stuffies, toys, things like that. And the third is other issues in the bedroom. So falling off the bed, getting wedged between the headboard, between mattresses, different things like that.
And I think that beyond just the physical cons, if you will, of co-sleeping, there is the fear of attachment, and some parents are worried that their children will become too reliant on them and unable to sleep on their own, and those types of things as well, which I have heard.
Other considerations are your relationship with your family, your partner, scheduling.
Like intimacy
things like that.
Obviously is not happening when you have your child in your bed, right? So those are some cons.
Right. Keeping in mind your other children and their schedules, your partner's schedules when they come to bed, when they wake up. Another thing is animals. Are they making noise in your room? Do they have their bed or their crate in your room? Different things like that.
So of course, when you're making the decision for your family, if you want to do co-sleeping or not, there's a ton of things to consider.
Totally. And we can't go through all the options. One of the cons could be a rainstorm going on.
Right.
It could be too loud. So we can't go through everything. But in a general overview, that's what co-sleeping is. You're sharing a room or bed with your child. There are some obvious glaring disadvantages.
Safety concerns.
And lifestyle concerns. And then outside that, I think we want to just dive into some, some stories from me, very, very short-term co-sleeper with my son who's 6 months. And then Erryn has 2 children who she's been through different variations of co-sleeping with, 5 and
3 next month.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
5 and 3, 5 and 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So we'll just dive right in. I think one of the big reasons I wanted to talk about this was I have a couple pregnant women in my life, and when I talked to them about co-sleeping, I just quickly reminded how little I knew about it. And if I was able to have someone like you talk me through some of these things rather than just hearing, oh, don't co-sleep, then you can do it safely and you feel empowered that you can get into that bed and you know how to do it. And so you and I had a few chats. I wish we had chatted about it more. So I could have gone into those scenarios and felt like even more,
I do absolutely think that there's a safe way to do it. And I do think it's a very personal decision. I know there's a lot of controversy around co-sleeping, and some people even feel shame if they do co-sleep because they feel they're being judged, which I never did feel like I was being judged, but I did feel like, I guess I did feel a bit of judgment
Absolutely.
sometime, depending on the situation from some people. I mean, if we're going to get into it, I chose to co-sleep with both of my girls. And like anything I've done, clearly I didn't do like a ton of research. However, I did do research on how to do this safely.
Before you did it, did you know it was frowned upon?
I did.
Or what was your like understanding of co-sleeping?
I knew that the people that I knew that had kids were not people that did co-sleeping. Yes. This was something that I was doing because this is something I wanted to do. My mom, when I was a baby, I co-slept with my mom till I was, 5, or when my mom got pregnant with my brother, she actually has told me this story. She said, I slept in her bed. She's like, I don't remember you not sleeping in my bed. She's like, I got pregnant with your brother. And I said, hey, we got to get her out of the bed or else we have no space. Mm-hmm. We have another baby coming. So then I moved into my own bed. But, I guess it just came natural to co-sleeping to me. Like, I always wanted my babies close. So when they were born, I had the bassinet and I had pulled it up right next to the bed. And, I would sometimes try and put them in the bassinet. But a lot of the time they would be in the bassinet for maybe a couple hours beside the bed. And then eventually they'd end up in the bed with me for a variety of reasons. It's the middle of the night. It was easier to soothe them. For breastfeeding ease, because I could feed them and we could both just went right back to sleep. And I liked that closeness. Like, I loved having my babies close with me. So, I mean, that's a couple reasons why I chose to co-sleep with my kids. So I really started co-sleeping pretty well right off the bat.
Right. So I guess we can talk about like some of those infant days, like early on. I think that's pretty similar to how it looked for me. Again, Everest is only 6 months old, so our journey is relatively new. I think I was reading it today, and they say the AAP suggests room sharing with your baby until at least 6 months.
Yes.
We did not do that.
So I did. So I had my kids in my room with me, either in the bassinet or in my bed, both until it was at least 9 months that I had them in the room with me. I had a lot of anxiety surrounding them not being somewhere that I could directly see them.
Right.
So having them either in the bed with me or in their bassinet. And quite honestly, if it weren't for maybe some of the judgment that you feel as a parent,
you would have done longer.
I may have done longer. Yeah. And
because you tell people, oh, my baby's in my bed with the arms, and
yes.
you get
and
that.
Both of my kids are very different in the way that they sleep and their sleeping patterns. And when I moved them, so my oldest, obviously she was my first baby, and I had her in my room with me till like 9 months. She co-slept with me a ton, like all the time we co-slept. And when she was quite younger, like when she was first born, it looked different than it did as she got older, right? So initially I was ensuring that there was no pillows up top. There was I would wear just the sheet.
Yeah,
and
so
I would
let's
keep
talk
it down.
about that. Yeah, what that physically looks like.
So what I felt was safe, and what I had read, no, you can't have blankets up by their heads or anything of that sort because of the fear of suffocation. Mm-hmm. So I would generally keep my blanket down. Like, I would have just a sheet and I would keep it down by my waist, and I wouldn't pull it any higher than that.
So where's the baby?
So I co-slept a lot of the time. She would sleep right on me. So
like
she would sleep
chest down?
Chest to chest. Yeah, I would have her chest to chest.
And she was under 6 months?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like this was from
early days.
From newborn birth. Yeah, she would sleep right on me. And did I have the best sleeps? Probably not, because I was constantly worried about her, kind of sleeping with one eye open.
Yeah.
But that's how we did it. I kept all the blankets down. My husband kind of stayed on his side of the bed. I didn't want him anywhere near her.
Yeah.
I set up a little pillow fort
yeah.
for him to stay on his
Blockade,
side of the bed.
if you will.
Right? That's right.
We've talked about Walter's Island before. And
yes,
how he
exactly.
He
needs to stay on his sleeping island. I'll stay on mine. But yeah, I mean, that's how we did it. She, like I said, mostly slept on me. I was breastfeeding. So throughout the night, probably, every couple hours, she would wake and breastfeed, and we would kind of already be in a position to do that.
Right.
And then we would both just go right back to sleep. And
Yeah, so that's almost, so I think you told me a little bit of this. And that's how I felt a little bit more confident to do this very similar thing. So we also had the bassinet, and I can only jump in here because that experience up until that point is all that we know, right? So I won't be able to add in as you get into your early or later ages of experience. So for us, we also had a bassinet. I felt like he needed to be in the bassinet at all times because I was afraid. I didn't know outside of you anyone that really co-slept, or no one talks about it openly. All you hear is like, don't do it, essentially.
Right.
That was my experience, at least at the time. And I didn't do a lot of homework before having Everest and of these things. I didn't know what to even research or look into. So I felt pretty unarmed in those early days.
Well, I feel like we're kind of told this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right? Like you said, like you're told don't co-sleep.
Right.
And then you're just like, oh, okay, and you move on.
Right. So we've got the bassinet there. I know I need the bassinet, so that means the baby's got to go in there.
Right.
So I have this nice bassinet. He's right next to me. And so he was only in our bedroom for 8 weeks, which is nuts.
I mean, but I actually do know other mothers that did the same thing. Like they had transferred their baby into a crib quite early.
Yeah.
And like I guess you would look at it as I did it quite late, right?
I guess. Well, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Right.
It just, so for us, so we had him there, and it, in those early days when they're waking up to eat a little bit more, luckily Everest he hit above his birth weight. Like he never dropped. So we didn't have to wake him every 2
He is 12 feet tall
He's
already.
massive.
So.
Yeah, so he's a big baby. So I didn't have to wake him, luckily. So he wasn't waking up. We've always gotten great sleeps out of him. But when he did, a couple times through the night, he would feed a ton, obviously. And I'd pick him up. And a lot of the times, and here's another mistake I made. I didn't have a rocking chair in my room. So I would feed him like on the edge of my bed because I wasn't leaned back, ready to go back to sleep. Like I'm sure you fed her and would kind of fall asleep.
Yeah, I would feed her kind of in a laying position.
Ready to go to bed after.
Yeah, whether that be her laying chest to chest or me on my side and her on her side right beside me.
Oh, right.
Side by
Okay,
side.
yes, I wanted to talk about that, the side lying position.
Yes, exactly.
And again, no one talks about these things, and
Right.
I know we're going to go deeper with like a breastfeeding
Yes.
latch consultant episode in the future, but we can dabble on it today. That's another thing I wish I had known sooner. So anyway, I'm not super armed with all this info, but I would sit on the edge of the mattress, like the edge of the bed, my feet dangling, and rocking Everest like this. And like 2 or 3 nights in, I had a major back spasm. Like you just gave birth, you're weakened in your muscles. So I just totally threw my back out from like physically rocking him in bed. And then I would put him in his bassinet, and then I'd go back to bed, and we continue to do that. Eventually it became like you're just exhausted, as you know. So I tried to follow your advice there, and I built myself up a pillow wall behind me. Again, nothing from the waist up.
Yeah.
So, and then I think you also told me you would put a sweater over your shoulders.
Sometimes I would put like if I had like
like a cardigan or
like something just over
Just
my
to
own
drape-
shoulders because
right.
I was freezing.
Yeah, like you talk about these things and you're warm and you're not considering at
like,
that moment.
Again, this is probably not what like a professional
Would do.
would suggest you to do. These are things that I did,
and you
because
found a
this
way
is
to
what
do it
worked
safely.
for me. Yeah.
So of course, they're not going to plaster on the billboard, do this with your child. But if you yourself have found a safe situation, and like you are a nurse, you are a trained professional in latch is that latch
counselor? Yeah.
So like you are very privy to this knowledge. You are well informed. So you're not going to put your child in harm's way.
Right.
And a mother's intuition typically helps in these situations too. So I would be propped up. I would get so cold. So I never ended up doing that, but I wish I had thought. I think near the end I did a little bit, but anyway, I remember being just freezing. So I've got a flopper of a husband. He is like, when he goes to switch positions, he like comes out of the water and like slams back down like
So that was like
totally.
fearful for you.
That was my fear. It was like,
Yeah.
Erryn's totally going to mess this up. So early on, we also figured out like he needs his own blanket. I need my own below, because he would pull it when he'd go roll over and pull it up onto Everest.
Oh,
So
which was scary.
that was
yeah.
just scary. So like
Yeah.
you need your own blanket. We only did this.
It's like you came across issues and you solved them.
Yeah. And I think these issues are important. Like if someone is going, is about to have their baby now, like they can hear things that we went through. Maybe they won't encounter them, but they can go in feeling a little bit more armed with this knowledge.
Right.
So anyway, long story short, I found the success sitting upright, and I'd be able to feed him and maybe doze off a little bit. And then, like you said, you never fully fall asleep in that situation. You don't get a great sleep. But I would hold him like this when he slept. So you had them upright.
I had, more across my body.
I would be here, and then my arms had lots of pillows. I think I must have had 5 to 7 pillows or blankets, like helping this whole, like the blockade, the back, the arm support. So I would hold Everest like this and then fall kind of asleep like this, all propped, but I'd be like,
constantly checking. Yeah.
And to this day, so we're at the 6.5 month mark, and I haven't done this in 4 months, and I'll wake up in fear that he is somewhere in the bed. Like I did last night. I'll wake up and I pull the blankets back and I'm like, where's Everest? And it's never once happened that he wasn't just right there.
Right.
And maybe did it like 30 times max.
Right.
And I'm still terrified. So it's that intrusive thoughts thing creeping back in.
So many intrusive thoughts all the time.
Scary.
And so I still end up co-sleeping with my kids to this day. I mean, like you said, my youngest is almost 3 and my oldest is 5. Now their co-sleeping journeys have been very different because their sleeping arrangements and styles and patterns have been very different. So like my 5-year-old, like I said, I co-slept with her pretty much since I brought her home. It was something that just felt natural to me. It's what I wanted to do. I found a safe way to do it, and I was comfortable with that. My husband was comfortable with that. That was our family's game plan. That's what we did. Break. That's what we did. So whether it be she was in the bassinet beside me, which would, she'd start out there typically and then move into my bed after a few hours of being in the bassinet and sleep the rest with me. That lasted till she was about 8 or 9 months. And then we transferred her to her crib, but frequently then she still wasn't sleeping well through the night. So I would go in and I would typically bring her back into my bed with me because at least that way I was also getting some sort of rest. Yeah.
That's how our transition happened also. So at the 8-week mark, I took him into his own bedroom for the first time. It was right 7 or 8 weeks. I took him in for his first time. He was taking all of his daytime naps in his crib. Like, again, I didn't have much support this other day, so I didn't know about napping and these. I napped him in his crib, I thought, bassinet and then crib. So, and I remember one time you sent me a message, wow, he looks so tiny in his crib. And I'd lay him down there. And for the first half of the night, so we always got like a 5 to 7 hour stretch that first part of the night. And then I'd bring him into the bed for the last 2 or 3 hours or whatever it was. And then by the end of that first week, he was doing his full night in the crib. Now we have a really good sleeper. Everest does like 12-hour sleeps in his crib straight, which is incredible.
Yeah, he's always been a really good sleeper for you.
We're
You got
super
really lucky. Yeah.
So I don't know if we would have done this and gone back and forth. The reason we moved him was what I mentioned earlier. One of the cons we have, my flopper of a husband and my dog was in and out of the room. She would wake up Everest. So we were like, Everest is all of a sudden waking at weird times. Like he's more aware of his surroundings. Are we waking him? Because Erryn would be up and down to go to the bathroom, and Brooklyn would be up and down walking about the room. So finally we'd moved him, and he didn't have those wakes again. So we're like, clearly we were holding him back. So it's like becomes that situation where, yes, technically is he safer here with us 100%, but do we have an incredible camera on him where I can see him at all times? He's got breathing things on, like he is incredibly safe.
Right, because they say that keeping your baby in your room is also a way to prevent SIDS, right?
Right. And do I feel good that when I move him, everyone's like, oh, he's SIDS. Now I'm terrified. But now I've got great eyes on him. I can see him all night. I have his monitor loud and the camera on. And now he's getting a good sleep and we're getting a good sleep. So that has to be weighed and considered in my mind.
I think it's important to do, like, today it's so hard. And like part of the reason, pretty much the biggest reason we started this podcast was because you have an influx of information on how to parent right
properly,
just coming at you from all angles.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's like, don't do this, do this. And then it's like the next thing you see is, well, don't do that, do this.
Right.
And it's just like,
you can't do anything.
It's nonstop. You can't do anything right. And if anyone gets anything, like if no one gets anything from this podcast other than the confidence to do what you and your family think is right and is right for your family, then I'll be a happy camper. Like if you feel confident enough to make the decisions, regardless of what other people say, that is right for your family, then this podcast has done its job.
I'm going to clip that and play that before every podcast. Like that is exactly what we want to do this for. And our dream audience is the person who wants to, to just have a little bit of unsolicited advice and make more or less just hear our journeys and maybe
let us feel judged so you don't have to.
Right. Yeah, we'll put out what we did, and if you can take anything from it and walk away and be like, I feel a little bit more informed going into this decision, and not having to Google or anything, and just be like, okay, I can do this. Those girls did that. Yeah. However, this is not necessarily medical advice, and
no, it's not professional by any means.
But this is just what we did. Yeah,
we've said this a million times. This is just our experiences, and what's worked for us.
So now we're gonna have to split ways a little bit now, because that's where my story with Everest ends in a sense. I mean, who knows? Maybe 8-month regression could hit, and we're back to co-sleeping. But for now, he does his 12-hour sleeps. I'm not waking up once. It's incredible.
Amazing.
In his crib. On that note, I did tell you I have one thing to tell you why I was upstairs, and then we'll jump into your infant beyond co-sleeping journey. So Everest today rolled over for his first time. So he's rolled before.
Right.
But today he was getting his bum change and he was looking behind his back and then rolled over. So I flipped him back onto his back, and he rolled over to his tummy again, flip him over, did it 3 times in a row. So okay, you never know. It could just be a fluke. I got home and he was playing, and he was back to tummy to back to tummy.
Oh, he's just on the move.
So he knows how to do it now. A background, he's done it a few times in passing.
Right.
But never something that's been consistent.
And with a little bit of support, with a mat or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this was totally out of the blue. So we're super excited. However, I did lay him down just before you got here to go to bed, and he rolled himself onto his tummy, and he was just playing and playing. I'm like, oh no. Because now it's instead of just getting bored on his back and falling asleep, he's like, what's over here? And he rolled on to his tummy, and he's looking around the room and a view he's never seen before.
Right.
And when he was done, I went to flip back onto his back. He hit his head and then got caught. His neck was caught like this, so his head was
bent.
Yeah,
because he was too close to the top.
Too close to the crib. So he rolled and then got stuck in this position and hit his head. So he's crying and crying, and I had to run up there real quick and go get him. But so now I'm like, gosh, you hit this milestone where you're sleeping right through the night, and then they learn this new developmental skill.
He went back down really well, though.
Really well, yeah.
Wow, yeah.
So still asleep, but
I mean, he's the best. He honestly sleeps better than any baby I know. I'll be honest with you. He's a good sleeper.
Yeah. So we got very lucky, but now I'm like, oh gosh, the next journey of now dealing with the roller, and so stay tuned.
And then babies, I know people get scared because your baby rolls on their stomach while they're sleeping.
It's a new unlocked fear. We talk about intrusive thoughts. Now I'm like, oh no, what if he rolls and he can't get back over? Or what if
uncharted territory?
What if his neck was kinked like that, and he didn't cry for us or whatever?
Right. So, but I think we just have to be aware that that's another thing. When do you put blankets in the crib? When do you put
I don't even know.
Right? So, I mean, again, not a professional.
I was going to Google it. What did you do?
I mean, so let's start with Emmy. So
sure.
So we co-slept with her till she was 8 or 9 months in my room, moved her out frequently, pretty much every night. She'd end up back in my room, really. And I couldn't even tell you to what age. And then eventually...
Did you have a time you woke her up at?
No, she would just wake up
whenever she wanted. So you didn't have a schedule in that sense?
No, I never was someone that did they say how they say, you have to feed every 2 hours. You have to do that. I never did that. And even still, especially, taking the lactation counseling, I know that that's not actually a thing. You can let your baby guide you. And as long as they're meeting those milestones and those weight marks and those, dirty and wet diapers, they're getting enough to eat and drink. So I never was someone that would wake them. Now, in saying that, Emerson was pretty consistently wanting to eat every 2 to 3 hours. That's just what she wanted. So, I didn't have to wake her up. She woke me up. So she would wake up. I'd feed her. She'd bring her in my bed, and she would usually sleep there the rest of the night with me. I wouldn't typically try and put her back down. There was a few nights when I was first transitioning her into her crib that I spent. It's all coming back to me now. I spent a few nights sleeping in the rocking chair. You know, and I don't know if part of that was because I felt judgment, and no one ever said anything to me. Like, no one made me feel directly judged that I was co-sleeping.
But you already know it's taboo, and you know they don't do
right.
it.
So I was like, in my mind, I'm like, I need to get her in her crib because this is what you do.
Yeah.
You get it. So, you know, she wasn't going in her crib. She wasn't wanting to stay there. So when she woke up, I would lay in the rocking chair, and her and I would end up sleeping in this rocking chair. And I'm like, now I'm not getting any sleep.
Neither of us
and
are
we're
getting
still
great
co-sleeping.
sleep.
So I'm like, I kind of just kiboshed that, and I was like, I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And if people are gonna judge me for that, they're gonna judge me for that.
Yeah.
So, you know, we still co-slept a lot. When she hit, I want to say she was just under 3, because I was pregnant with my second daughter, and I think I had her, and we moved her into a big girl bed, low profile big girl bed, because
so she went from crib
to big girl bed.
And was she sleeping through the night in her crib yet?
Off and on, yeah. So there was some times when she was sleeping in her crib, like all on her own throughout the night, and then you know, sometimes she was still ending up in my bed. But the thing about her was she was very good that if I went and got her and brought her to my bed, she went right back to sleep. So we both got, you know, a full night's rest, really. She went to her big girl bed, and then the cutest thing, she didn't think, it's like it didn't click that she could leave the bed. So for the longest time, she would call me from the bed, not realizing I can get out of this bed. Like, it was very low profile bed. I don't know if you remember.
How old was she?
I want to say 3.
Okay.
Like around 3, because I had Nora, but Nora was still sleeping in my room. So, yeah, I want to say around 3, and she didn't realize she could leave the bed. Now, the good thing about her having the bed was that one of us could just go lay in the bed with her until she fell asleep, and then she could stay there. But she did end up co-sleeping with us back in our bed a ton, too. And then now she's 5, and still to this day, she tiptoes her little toes into my room sometimes. Like, she sleeps through the night pretty well all the time. But are there nights when she ends up in my bed? Yes, absolutely. And she
crawl into your bed? She gets in herself?
She comes, I hear her coming around my side. She's like, Mommy. And she'll like crawl up into my bed, and I put her in. And honestly, I like it. I like feeling that closeness to her, because I know, and they say that people say this all the time about kids, but you know, it's not going to be forever. These days don't last forever. Right? It's not going to be forever.
Everything is temporary.
And it's, you know, she's becoming more and more independent as the days go on.
One day it will be the last time.
Right. And that just breaks my heart, because
so
I love having her little body close to me and like snuggling. And sometimes she'll just say, Mommy, can I fall asleep in your bed? And I'll say, yeah. And I'll let her fall asleep with me, and then I'll put her in hers. But so I guess we still do a variation of like co-sleeping still to this day with her, right? Like when she needs it, when she feels like she needs, especially now that she's in school. I feel like sometimes we need that extra closeness, like a week that I've worked a lot and she's been in school a lot and we haven't seen each other. Yeah. It's kind of nice to have that at the end of the day.
It is nice.
Now, my second daughter, though, her sleeping habits were very different. She's a very good sleeper, but she needs her space.
Right.
So, yes, I kept her in my room till 8 or 9 months. I moved her into a crib, and since I've moved her into her crib, she pretty well sleeps in her crib. Like, she does not co-sleep with us, and that is not by my choice. That's something
she's just a little bit more independent.
Yes, she likes to sleep on her own. Now, there are times when she wakes up, not very frequently. She's, like I said, she's a good sleeper. She sleeps through the night pretty much. She's an early riser. She goes to bed at like 7. She's up by like 5 o'clock, 5:30, right? Which is
and
fine.
Up. Like, you can't get her to fall back to sleep in your bed?
Yes, for the day.
Oh, okay.
Like, this is, we're up. And she's been like that since she was like young. Like, when she's up, she's up. Like, since she could talk, she would be like, no, I want to get up. Like, I don't want to go back to sleep. It'd be like, no, Mommy, up. No, Mommy, up. Up. Like, she wants to get up. So she sleeps in her crib. Like, now when we travel, sometimes she'll sleep in bed with me. I just find she does not sleep quite as well in bed as Emerson did sleep in bed with us. So last night, for example, she actually did wake up at 3:30 in the morning, which is really not typical for her. She is, like I said, she sleeps through the night. She was awake till 5:30. So
what does she do? Does she want you to be up with you? Playing tap?
Like, she taps on our headboard.
In your bed?
Oh, yeah. So, like, I went into her room. I tried to talk to her, tried to lay her back down. She I don't know if she's going through a phase where she's scared of the dark or what, but she's, like, clawing onto me. She's like, Mommy, like, she's not letting me put her down. So I'm like, she's like, I want to go to your bed. So I bring her into my bed with me. I'm like, that's fine. She's not sleeping. She's not sleeping. I'm like, Nora, you can come into my bed. You got to sleep, though. She is tapping on the headboard. She's putting her hands on my face. She's kicking my husband. She's just like playing with her hands in the air. I'm like, Nora, you got to go sleep. She's like, okay, I'm sleeping. And I'm like, you're not sleeping. 2 hours of this.
Yeah.
2 hours. And finally I'm like, Kate, let's go back to your crib and try to sleep. And she's like, no, I'm sleeping. And I'm like, you're not sleeping, child. So eventually she went back to sleep at 5:30. And then, hour later, we have to get up to get ready
I
for
wonder
work.
if it's a time change messing
No,
with her?
this happens every once in a while with her. It's not a lot, but every once in a while. And she just... when she gets up, she does not, it takes her forever to be able to settle back down. And, I'm not breastfeeding anymore. That made it easier when I was breastfeeding because it was something to help her settle herself back down. But I find any sudden movement, she's up. Or if my husband gets up to go to the bathroom, she's awake. And it's just like, it's not that way in her crib. When she's in her crib, we can make noise, we can talk, it's fine. But if she's in our bed, any sound, and it's like, oh, we're up for the day. So they've both had very different journeys co-sleeping. I do still co-sleep with them both at different times.
Yeah.
It's not obviously constant anymore. They both have their own beds and they sleep really well in their own beds. But yeah, we do still co-sleep. We actually, my oldest and I call it sleepovers now.
That's so cute.
Yeah. So she'll say, Mommy, can we have a sleepover in your bed?
Adorable. Okay. So couple that just prompted a few questions. One, is Nora still in a crib?
She is still in a crib, yes.
Is that typical?
So it's funny because with Emerson, I felt like it was time to get her out of the crib, but also we had a new baby coming and we were going to utilize the crib.
So there was
a reason. There was a timeline, if you will. But with Nora, I think, so when we transferred Emmy from her crib to bed, we put up a baby gate on her door. We live in a one-level house. So,
right, I remember that.
So stairs weren't really a worry, but I didn't want her wandering the house or anything like that. So we put up a baby gate on her door. And like I said, she didn't leave her bed. She would not leave her bed. Nora is a bit more mischievous. And I worry about the day that I have to take her out of her crib. Were she to be starting to try and climb out and it was becoming a hazard to have her in her crib, yes, I probably would transfer her. However, she does not try to climb yet. And it gives me peace of mind knowing, I think even if I put the baby gate on her room, I would be very nervous because she would go through I would have to completely clear out her room.
So she's dropped down to the lowest setting.
Yes.
And she's just in her baby crib still.
Yes. Likely, could she get out of it if she
really
tried?
wanted to?
For sure. But she doesn't try, so it's not really
a fear.
Harm. My husband and I joke we're leaving Nora in her crib till she's 18 because we just don't want to deal with it. But, I don't know when we'll transfer her, honestly.
Transition will happen.
Because obviously if she doesn't start trying to climb, eventually, we're going to have to transfer her to
just
a big girl
size-wise,
bed. Yeah. She can't be in her crib.
She can't be in there forever.
Right.
And she's going to be able to get up and down.
Right. So, and we do have a bed of available waiting for her. We've transferred now my oldest from her low profile to a big, she has a big queen bed. She actually has a great bed. So she has a bed waiting for her. So it's just kind of when we're ready, I guess,
to make that
switch. Yeah.
Oh,
but to
boy.
me, I feel like she's still my little baby.
And
I think because she's my last baby.
And you're not making that transition. You have no dead timeline. You don't have to.
And I'm it's kind of one of those, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah,
Is that the saying? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I'm she sleeps really well.
Yeah.
She sleeps through the night
so
pretty well every night.
Let's just ride this out.
Right.
Totally.
So I'm eventually we'll have to switch her, but when that will be, I don't know.
That's what everyone would say to me before Everest is really rolling. And the mom in you is oh, is there a reason why he's not rolling? The guy is pulling to stand and he's not rolling. Everest can walk along coffee tables at 6 months and he's not rolling, and so it's maybe he developed those muscles and we helped him into that, so now he's not going to develop these muscles. And it's every baby's going to eventually get there. And they all have their own journey. And then now that he is rolling, I'm oh, I actually could have waited.
We got there. Yeah.
Oh, no.
See, and that's the thing. I feel if I had Nora first, because she was a bit more advanced than Emerson, I would have worried about Emerson. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, because she hit those milestones, those physical milestones, like earlier than Emerson did. So then, but
So then
because
you
I
would have
had
been
them,
like, oh, is this taking so long? Yeah.
Yeah.
I also find, so just being like a first time mom, I go to now, just recently in the last 2 or 3 weeks, all these baby and mom things. So the parent taught swim or the mommy and me workout class or all these different things. And every time I see the other moms that are second, third, fourth time moms, their kids are always much more advanced, like the fourth
Right.
kid, because they don't have the time to be coddling them. Like,
Right.
they don't, like Everest, for example, if he makes a sound, we are there because we have literally, like me, I have nothing else to do. When I'm watching him, he is my priority
Right.
until he goes down for a nap and I do everything else. But when I'm with him, I am with him, obviously.
Right.
When you have two, your time is split.
Yeah, and
So-
I did feel guilty about that sometimes, about how I would
course
put
you're
Nora
going to.
was down a lot more than Emmy was.
Yes,
right?
that's just naturally going to happen.
Yeah.
But for that reason, they're down and they can explore and they build those muscles faster. And then if they cry, you can't get to them immediately. So they learn independence faster. Hence why 2, 3, 4 are more and more independent.
Yeah.
Because they just have to be.
They have to be.
And so I always was hard on myself when I see all these. So at Mommy and Me class, Everest just sits. He sits like a proper little boy, this perfect posture.
tux.
Yeah. And he can play in the realm that his arms can reach.
Right.
So if his little arms can reach that book, he can play with it. But if Johnny or Jimmy come crawling by and take it from him, he can't
now
do
lost
anything
that
about
book.
it.
Yeah.
So he kind of, and I think honestly going to this class has got him like perked interest in wanting to crawl and move
Yeah.
because he's watching every kid. He literally stares at them like, how are you doing this? So anyways, I don't even know how I got on that, but yes, I think because you were saying the timelines of the
Yes.
babies. So we always want to like compare ourselves to other children, but you know, they're going to get there.
right.
So,
Everyone,
yeah.
they all get there with anything at their own pace.
Yeah. So wait, sorry, I had 2 more questions
Yes.
for you. So side lying.
Side lying.
The way I've learned about this, so side lying is a way to breastfeed on your side, where essentially you take your lower breast, that's against kind of the mattress, and you prop your baby up next to you and you feed him that way.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of actually more questions about side lying. I've not noted them all down for you, but we'll touch on that in another point. I would have utilized this so much more for co-sleeping had I known about it. We did this for our photo shoot. The photographer who we love had said, why don't you give him a sucky to get him to like fall asleep for this shot or whatever. And I was like, we don't have a sucky.
Because
I
you
was
guys
like,
don't use those, yeah.
yeah, so we don't use those. So she's like, why don't you side lie with him? I go, what? She's like, lie him down.
I feel like you and I had briefly touched on this, though, because
Maybe.
you were asking me about feeding in bed, and that
Yes.
is one of the techniques that I use.
And it wouldn't have meant anything to me at the time.
right, I guess because we didn't really go into it. It wasn't really something that it was kind of like a brief, like,
overview.
in passing.
And it's like, so my sister-in-law, she's about to have a baby, and I like physically got in bed with my massive Everest, not my tiny little baby. I still will side lie with Everest.
Yeah.
In the morning, if like, so I say we don't co-sleep. In the morning, if Erryn and I are just not ready to get up, we grab Everest at like 6:30, bring him to my bed, and we'll steal another hour and side lie, and the 3 of us will fall back asleep. So technically, I guess I am still co-sleeping.
Yeah, your own variation.
Our own variation.
Yeah.
So side lying, huge, so key. Do you have any tips with that, or is
As far as tips go, I think it's pretty
that
like
it?
yeah,
Pretty
black
straightforward?
and white. Like you
My one question about it is like, I know different people do different things with burping. Everest needed to be burped post feeding, especially when he was having all those lactose issues and the vomiting issues. I find and still find if I side lie and feed, we couldn't fall asleep like that. Now we can, but when he was little, we couldn't fall asleep like that because I'd had to sit him up and burp him, and then that woke him.
Yeah.
Versus when I was feeding him here, I could kind of keep him asleep, prop him up a little, get a burp, and then lay him back down. I don't know if that makes sense.
that makes sense. That
You have
makes
to like,
sense. 'Cause you
he's
have to-
laying flat and you have to like fold his body in half to rub his, you know what I mean? You're like getting him up and almost waking him.
Yeah, what I would
Yeah.
say is maybe like, I mean, now that it's not really an issue for you,
No,
but you
yeah.
could always like kind of slide them onto your body and do the burp over your
oh,
shoulders
yeah.
so that they're still feeling that close. Maybe that will keep them
Yeah.
asleep a little
That's a
better
good-
than
yeah.
like actually physically.
Because that's what I do, and
they're
he doesn't have the neck
They still
control.
feel a bit comforted, and then maybe
Right.
they'll stay asleep,
Yeah.
have that burp, and then you can lay back down with
Yeah.
them. Would be a suggestion that you could try. I mean,
Yeah, that's a good tip. The other thing was, I just briefly mentioned it before, but like rocking chair in the room, I just wanted to touch back on that. So we eventually did move the rocking chair into our bedroom. Did you have one?
I had a really good rocking chair. I loved my rocking chair.
We love your rocking chair.
Loved my rocking chair. I no longer need a rocking chair because my children are older. I'm not nursing. We use it for bedtime stories now. It's still in my daughter's room. I'm like, when I actually have like, I think an unhealthy attachment to it. Like, I feel like to me, my rocking chair is my baby's childhood. Their newborn stages. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm a little bit attached to it. Like,
it absolutely is.
Even the thought of
you slept in that thing.
Yeah, like the thought of getting rid of it, like when we talk about like, oh, we'll have to redo Nora's room one day, we get to paint it, like I get choked up, like I feel a little bit emotional right now, like I'm like, I will not be getting rid of this chair.
I'll take it downstairs to the playroom.
Yes, like literally I will not be getting rid of this chair.
It's also just a great and probably expensive chair.
It was a very good chair. It was a great purchase. Shout out to my dad who actually helped us with the chair, but got us the chair. I picked it out, my dad got it. It was a gift. But yeah, so we didn't have one in the room, but we did have the rocking chair in her room. And like I told you, I slept in it a lot.
You fed her already in your position, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I never like sat on the edge of the bed really. Maybe in those early days with Emerson, I think I sat up, but then once I started to get a little more comfortable, I was like, no, thank you.
I cannot stress. So we kind of not chinsed out, but like, we kind of did, like with our rocking chairs. We're like, we don't want to drop a ton of money on a rocking chair. So we got a nice, like a nice aesthetically pleasing rocking chair, but not like I'm 6'2". I'm like a bigger, taller woman. This, like even now, like look how high my knees are to my chest. Like my rocking chair, my knees are hiked up. Like it's not ergonomically, fit to my body. One thing I cannot recommend enough is having in your nursery, in your feeding space, in wherever it's going to be. You like that
so
too?
Good.
So good. Wherever you're going to be, a nice, like if you're going to invest money,
comfortable rocking chair.
Invest in the rocking chair. You spend so many hours in this rocking chair.
When I tell you I was picking out a rocking chair, like this is probably the thing I spent the most time on. I was pregnant. I went to the store. Now the store isn't available anymore, but I went there and I sat in about.
I did not do this.
So many. And my husband Walter, he's like, "Okay, what's going on? Pick a rocking chair." And I'm like, this is important. And to me, I don't know why I felt that it was.
You were right. So like to me, a lot of these things I did not spend much time on are just like, and that was one that I don't know why.
Well, then you'll have people that say, I didn't even use our rocking chair,
so,
right?
So we ended up buying ours used off a woman who said that they hardly use it. Now we cleaned it all up anyway, whatever.
I'm all for used.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Almost everything we bought for Everest was previously owned. A lot of people with baby stuff will buy something and not get the chance to use it, or their baby didn't like it. And so they spent all this money on it. And now it's,
it's so funny to me, things that like, it's so hard for people will come to me and be like, what did you use? It's their first baby. They're like, what's important? What do I need? And I'm like, everybody will say something so different. Like I could be like, I lived and died by this, and someone else would be like, I didn't even touch, I didn't even open mine. You know what I mean?
Or like my one. Okay, we're jumping around. I know. Yeah, just to add to that, one of my best friends had said this rocker, my kids loved it. We bought that rocker, Everest hated it. Right. So it's just like, anyway. So, but for the rocking chairs, we bought one secondhand. It ended up being so too short for me. And like my shins were just on fire at night. If I had any pain, it was my back from being in the bed, rocking on the edge of the bed. So then we got the rocking chair. We brought the rocking chair to the master. So I gave birth in my bed. Like I had a home birth, which
is a story that you'll tell one day, yeah.
And we did not consider to bring these things to our master bedroom. Like the bassinet wasn't in there. So if I could, if you're about to have a baby and you're going to be coming home, and raising your child in your master, which likely you are, I recommend, if you've got the time now, set up that change station, have your change pad in there, have your bassinet ready to go, have your rocking chair, or else your husband in the middle of the night is moving all of this
Is
stuff.
lugging a rocking chair
all over,
across the room.
which is fine. I'm sure they're happy to do it, but like, why not save yourself the stress?
I'm sure they're not.
No. So anyway, we had the rocking chair. He brings it in the master. But now when guests come over, and this is maybe just me totally picky, but like when guests would come over and visit, again, we weren't in the hospital. We were right here in our home. I had nowhere to sit. Like, I'm not in a hospital again. Like, I'm at my house.
Right.
Freshly given birth 6 hours ago.
Right.
And now we are lugging the rocking chair between our master to the living room.
Because I remember you had it in the living room for the
Yes, I
longest
did.
time.
Yeah. And so then we end up upgrading and buying a nicer one for the living room. And now we have Everest in his nursery.
yeah.
Sorry. So now we decide the first one's no good. I don't fit in it. The second one, that's staying in the living room. It's a permanent piece there so that I can feed. We're going to have multiple kids. I can
Right.
sit in the living room and be a part of everything and nurse and rock the baby to sleep. But we need one in his nursery. So now we have to
Now
buy
we're on a
another
third
one.
rocking
So we ended up
chair.
taking the one that we bought for the living room and put it in there. So now we have 3. And so in a sense, it's good we didn't just go out and buy some mega expensive one because we bought 3. But I'm sure over our 3, we spent probably as much as your dad did on that one amazing
yes,
one.
100%.
But when my husband and I came over to your house for Christmas and he saw that rocking chair, he's like, where did they get this from? It's amazing.
Yeah, it is a good rocking chair.
Yeah.
I gotta say that is probably my favorite thing that I have in her nursery.
Especially
for
if you're
sure.
going to be sleeping in it or the amount of
And
hours.
I did, and I loved it. It had like
Yeah.
a recliner, but you could stick your hand down the inside and recline it, and I liked that because it was easier for me. Like
Than
I got
getting
short
down.
little T-Rex arms.
Yeah,
Then
we have different
reaching-
issues, yeah.
Yes, right. So then I would prop myself up and I'd
Yeah.
recline. And it like leaned all the way back. I spent a lot of nights sleeping in that chair.
Totally.
I would lug down big giant blankets and
Yeah.
I would sleep in that chair with
Yeah,
with
I
my
very
babies.
luckily didn't have to spend as much time in it, but every mom across the board is going to be rocking in something, whether you're rocking just with your own
Yeah.
strength of your back or you're in a chair. So
Yeah.
if you've got the money to spend or if you're going to invest in one item,
good
that's where I
rocking
would
chair,
put
yeah.
the money. Like,
And like I said, I still use it. Like my girls, every single night, we sit in this chair, we do bedtime story,
Yeah.
and then my daughter always asks for one more cuddle,
Oh.
so we have one more cuddle in the
Yeah.
rocking chair before she goes
underrated.
into her crib. Yeah,
Totally underrated. So those were my follow-ups. Did you have anything else on co-sleeping? I know you could probably talk about this for hours, so I don't want to be jumping all over
Right.
and cutting you off.
I think the biggest pros that I would say
Yeah.
for me was the convenience of co-sleeping and the fact that it made it so that I was able to get some rest as well. The convenience of feeding. So, I was able to feed my baby and just roll it back over to sleep. And, you can kind of be half asleep when you're side lying and feeding, right?
Totally.
And I just feel like it's very bonding for me. Like it was a good bonding. And like I said, I still do it with Emerson to this day. Like we'll co-sleep sometimes. So if you're going to do it, just make sure you do it safe. Like there's absolutely a safe way to do it. And like I said before, if nothing else, just if this is what you want to do it, and don't stop yourself because you feel judged
Right.
by other parents, because I can tell you tons of people co-sleep and you just have to make sure you're doing it properly and not putting your baby at risk, right?
Right. And making sure you yourself are comfortable.
Right.
Your husband has a comfortable.
Exactly.
So I know a couple, I don't know them personally, but I've heard a couple of friends talk about couples that will kick their husband out because they might have a flopper like I do.
Yeah.
As their husband are on the guest room or on the couch or whatever, and their baby is co-sleeping with them just to make it that much safer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's totally a variation.
Whatever you have to do with your family,
Yeah.
whatever works for you, do it.
I remember for us, like the one night night we decided to put Everest in his crib was the night that Brooklyn, our dog, we had to shut our door so that she would not come in the room. We had to turn the white noise up so that if she did come, because she leans against our door,
Yeah.
that wouldn't make so much noise. And then Erryn, my husband, was just rolling too much, and I was like, you gotta stop. Like,
Yeah.
I am laying here trying my best not to even wiggle, so that the
Yeah.
baby won't be awoken. And you are just
Here you are,
flopping.
yeah.
I'm the one that's awake all night. I'm
Having
the
to
one
do all
that's
the
dealing
work,
with this.
yeah.
And you're just flip-flopping around like nothing's going on. So I'm like, you gotta stop, you gotta stop. Finally, he just took like a blanket, went out to the couch. So I'm like, now my dog's locked out. Now my husband's locked out. I didn't sleep great. Everest didn't sleep great. Maybe we need to reassess
This didn't work
this.
for us. Yeah.
So that first night that happened, we're like, okay, let's pivot. So it totally looks different. And we could arm you with all the stories and everything, but really you're going to get a sense of what your baby wants and what you're comfortable with. And as long as the three of you are totally comfortable, that's all that matters.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's like the
gist
of it. Like you said, we could go on and on with stories about co-sleeping and, you know, but you got to do, like anything else, you got to do what works for you.
Absolutely.
So before we sign off, a couple things.
Yeah.
Do you have a swap?
I do have a swap. I feel like I had skipped a couple weeks in swap. So this one is a little bit more generic. I am not a huge coffee drinker, but I have started. I've dabbled in parenthood. And we are in this whole thing of we don't like things to be like we like to try to buy things as clean as possible. So the idea of like Keurigs right now stresses me out because the heat and the moisture and mold possibly building up, and then using those single serving pods or the microplastics of that, and then the recyclability of it. Anyway, lots of issues there. We were using a single-use Keurig before. Again, I was not even drinking coffee before, so it didn't really matter. But when we decided to buy a coffee maker, we're like, what is the cleanest way to do it? And the way we ended up on was like one of those stainless steel like percolators. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Where it's this metal base, and we have an induction stove. I believe you do.
I have an induction stove as well.
So we had to buy one specifically that works on the induction stove. So it's just a little bit more expensive. So anyway, it's this stainless steel bottom. It's like a cone, and you fill the bottom up with water. And you fill this like I don't know thing with the coffee grinds, and you put it in top, and it sits on top of the water.
Coffee, okay.
And then you screw this top
You are going
chamber.
to have to show this to me.
Sorry, 3 chambers, a top pot that's empty, a bottom pot that has the water, and then a little pot in between the two that has the coffee grinds.
Okay.
So you put that whole thing on the burner, turn it all the way up. The water boils at the bottom, comes up through the coffee grinds, and sits up in that top chamber, and there's your brewed coffee. So it's all metal. There's no plastic. It's incredible. It's dishwasher safe. We just put it in the dishwasher, and it is so fast.
Yeah. I got a little freaked out by like Keurigs too, because I'm like, these things don't get cleaned for sure.
100%.
Like there's so much gunk sitting probably in the lines.
Yeah, and
I
anywhere there's water and heat.
So I ended up just getting a regular everyday coffee pot, and I just brew a whole pot of coffee.
Easy enough.
Pot of coffee.
A pot of coffee.
A pot of
she
coffee.
needs her pot of coffee ASAP.
And it feels cleaner to be
Maybe I do need the caffeine.
I know. The uninterrupted all over again. So I have that, and then and also for my tea, because I drink a lot of tea now mostly as well. Just like
you just do the kettle on the stove.
I just do a kettle on the stove.
Yeah. So
regular old stainless steel kettle. Yeah.
So that's literally the same idea, but for the coffee.
But for coffee, yeah.
So I'll have to show it to you, and again, we can link it in to show you guys what we use. But that is my clean swap.
Okay, so my swap is something actually that you bestowed upon me. I don't know if anyone else has used this, but I, like anybody, get super dry lips in the winter months. And I always am looking for like a clean lip chap, if you will, or whatever people call it these days. And you introduced me to beef tallow?
Yeah, beef tallow.
I don't know if you can show it in the camera at all. It's so little. But it is... So... Backstory.
Yeah.
When Brie was living out in Calgary.
Oh, yeah.
We went on a little Calgary adventure, and we came across this adorable little store. Everything in there was made of beeswax.
So cute.
And it was so cute. They had soaps and,
Name it.
You name it. They had everything. Candles, whatever. And they had these little lip chaps, and it was beeswax.
Almost looked just like that.
It looked just like this, and it was mint, and I fell in love with it. I never wanted to use anything else since. I've always looked for like something similar to this. It was a little shop, so I don't even...
It was like one ingredient. It was like the beeswax and
then I think like
mint.
A eucalyptus.
Like essential oil
or something. Yes. It was very clean, and I loved it. And I've been using it. I wanted... I wasn't able to replicate that here.
Yeah.
I couldn't find one that I liked as much as this. And then you introduced me to this, and
it's amazing.
I love it. It
lasts.
It lasts, It has like a great little minty touch to it.
Yeah.
And it is so smooth.
It is.
And it doesn't, like when you use those lips chaps that are like a little bit more chemically based, it strips your lips of those natural oils, and this one does not do that.
It's so
like, so sometimes
nice.
you can tell, right? Like, 'cause when you're using a lip chap, you're like, wow, my lips feel drier now.
I need to use this.
That does not happen
Yeah.
with this. Like
Yeah.
this genuinely, it moisturizes your lips. And
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm so glad you love
I love
it.
it. My husband also loves it. He
So does my
is
husband.
constantly asking me for mine. So
Wait, what does
might
he
have
say?
to- Can it pass me your beef fat?
I would love to learn how to make it, but for now, and also I don't know if I'll ever dabble. It sounds like a lot of work. We found this awesome local company, which I also love. They're from London, Ontario. So we use it. We also use it on as a diaper cream. So
Yeah, okay.
they have like a whipped version
Yep.
that you can use as a
Obviously,
bum rash.
Sans mint.
Sans the mint. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, could you imagine?
Imagine
Woo,
for a little
refreshing.
bum, yeah.
And then did you want to do the Would You Rather?
Yeah, I have like one or
Co-sleeping
two,
edition?
just a little co-sleeping edition of the Would You Rather. Let me just find it here. Oh, here it is. Okay, so
You're going to answer these two?
I'll answer them too.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Would you rather co-sleep with your child until they are 5 years old
Okay.
and they have an amazing sleep quality, or have your child sleep independently in their room from the start but wake up multiple times a night for years?
Well, obviously, I'd rather co-sleep.
Right.
And get great sleep.
Yes.
Like, if that's a scenario that our family needs, then yes, I'd rather get the
Right.
great
I
sleep.
feel like it's
a
a
no-brainer.
no-brainer, right? Like you go for
I
the
don't know.
sleep.
Some people, like, really like their space.
Some people are very against co-sleeping. And I know some people like that, and like that's fine. Some people are very, very against co-sleeping.
But I think also for, like, a psychological reason, like I think you tapped on it before. We did not talk a lot about this because I don't know much about it, but what co-sleeping does to the long-term effects of your children. Like, are they going to be, does it change the way they're raised?
Right.
Who knows? I'm sure
knows,
there's
yeah.
studies on this, but we don't personally know.
Right.
So maybe someone that would be their reasons that they aren't dependent. But anyway, to me, it's a no-brainer.
right,
Co-sleep.
co-sleep. Yes, 100%. I am with you. Okay, and I had one more. Okay, this is kind of like similar to that one.
Okay.
Would you rather co-sleep with your child in a large bed where you both have plenty of space, or
Okay.
co-sleep in a smaller bed where you're always close but feel a bit cramped?
Interesting. I, at 6 months, would never want Everest to be far from me.
Right.
So we always do feel cramped, even in a king. So I don't think a bigger bed would make us feel less cramped.
And I completely agree with you, because
Even if I had a California king, I think we would
Yes.
still sleep the way we do.
right.
Yeah.
So, and I totally agree with that. And as they get older, like Emmy's 5 now, and we do require more space. Like when it's me, her, and Walter in the bed, I'm like, something's got to give here. And I think it's more because she's a mover too. Like she's a mover, a groover, a shaker, a kicker.
Yeah.
But when she was little, I wouldn't have wanted her
No.
farther from me. So no matter the size of the bed,
No.
I'm going to feel cramped because she's
'Cause
going to
she's
be
gonna-
up close
right
to
here,
me.
yes.
And even still, she always wants to be nuzzled in next to me.
Yeah.
And I do like that. I
Yeah.
love that. Now, when I'm ready to go to sleep for the night, I'm like, I do need a bit of space.
Not
so I guess
bad.
a bigger bed would be better.
Better. I guess,
But,
yeah. With the ages, I think that's age specific.
But if it wasn't, yes, I think it's
as an
age
infant with we're still worried about them
Right.
sleeping at
Then
night,
I'd rather
suffocation, all
feel
these things.
cramped, for sure.
Absolutely cramped. After what, the age of 1?
Yeah, I don't know. Even like 3.
3?
Yeah.
Okay, well.
For me, 3. I'm ready
Age
to get some
specific.
space.
But
yeah.
I think I'd rather be cramped, sadly.
I think if I had to indefinitely choose one or the other, like no matter
it is.
cramped it is.
Because
Yes,
what's
I
the benefit
agree.
of having a big bed? I guess no. It
Like
wouldn't work.
why co-sleep if you're not going to snuggle?
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, that's awesome. But yeah, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
That's it. So
That's it for today.
I hope we left you with some knowledge here of just how two people are exploring, the co-sleeping world. And
I hope you can be a little more confident in the choice that you make.
yeah. And please comment below if you have had a different experience or want to share with us what your journey has looked like. And we hope, like I said, that you continue to join us for future chats like this. And yeah.
All right.
That's it.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.